No sooner are you born than you go into battle with other people's birth charts. And this goes for America too. Little did America know that 11 years into its journey, it would meet its mate for life, the United States Constitution, also known as the United States of America. Today, we're going to look at that relationship between America and its Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, the United States of America, when the 13 colonies agreed to give it a go as one. And we're going to ask the question, can this marriage be saved? Hi, my name is Melissa, and welcome back to Astrology Simplified. Okay, brief history lesson here before we get into the discussion, because I need to set the context about America. So before America was born, the British had set up 13 colonies with a governor in charge of each. These colonies enjoyed a standard of living and lower taxes that those in the UK did not get. At the same time, we had the French over here in America, and they were defining or finding their land. And of course, we have the Native American Indians who are trying to hold on to the land that was theirs. So we had some battles. Now, Britain, in order to pay for those battles with the French and with the Indians, wanted to raise the taxes for the colonists. And the colonists said, absolutely not. And they established the Continental Congress. And they met and they said, no, these are the rules, we're not going to do this. Britain didn't agree with that. They pressed. There were lots of other battles in between. But come July 4th, 1776, those colonies decided to declare themselves independent from the United Kingdom. And that was the birth of America. But the wars with Britain waged on, and America came together again, the colonies came together again. And they said, we have to be a stronger force against the United Kingdom because we're losing these battles. How do we do this? Well, someone wanted to call it the United States of America back then, but they said, no. Remember, in America's chart, you have the moon in that third house below, right? We've talked about the South Node. There is a shadow in America's soul of being the puppet for someone else's ideologies. So America was quick to say, no, we're not going to be the United States of America. We'll do a League of Friendship thing, which is so fitting for the third house. But they continued to try to battle the war. And we didn't have a way to set an army with this League of Friendship. We could not regulate commerce with other countries because Britain was the gatekeeper, and we couldn't tax, and we couldn't enforce what Congress was saying because we were all just in the League of Friendship. And this seems like a good time to revisit America's top 5 issues in its chart, the things that it will always be battling, the conversations between planets that create America's struggles and hopefully lead to our victories as well. So in America's toddler years, if we remember that Saturn is in our 10th house, we have obstacles regarding our social image and exercising our social power. Well, the League of Friendship wasn't working. But we also have planets in that 7th house, and that is learning our diplomatic power. Well, what we had done when we were arguing with the British about taxes and things like that, as they were trying to still control us, is we said, hey, France, Britain, let's get together, help us fight. And they did. But we still had those same problems. We couldn't raise an army. We were losing battles because we couldn't get a common plan together on how to approach the British, even with the help of France and Spain. So America came together again, or the Constitutional Congress came together again to revisit the Articles of Confederation. And this was in 1787, when America was a young 11 years old. And they invited, just so America here, 90 people were invited from those 13 colonies. 50 show up. And they get into these debates and arguments about how do we need to structure America. And you have the Federalists and you have the Anti-Federalists. The Federalists want a centralized government. The Anti-Federalists don't want that because they're concerned that we're going to become, a monarchy again. So we come up with these Bill of Rights. And of those 50 people who actually showed up, only 39 signed. But that is the birth of our Constitution. That is when 13 individual colonies came together under an agreement and said, we're going to operate as one. Here is the marriage contract. As in any relationship, when two charts come together, there are going to be synergies or not. And America had a different planetary distribution. Those planets had different energies, different motivations than the United States of America or the Constitution, what it had. So you can look at our past 250 years or so together and you can say, okay, I get why we're having some disagreements. Coming together as a country created some challenges for America. There are three key changes. One, Pluto and Saturn have changed location. Pluto and Saturn have now gone into a cardinal house in the United States of America's chart. That means they are there and they are learning about their personal power. Now, Pluto is holding on to things that it doesn't want you to see. It's got the basement door bolted and shut. It has things that it treasures down there that are gathering dust and mold. It doesn't care, but in some way, shape, or form, it's hoarding those things. Then it has Saturn right next to it, protecting that door. It is the obstacle to that door. You are not getting at it. And what are they guarding? Personal power. Next, the moon has moved from an adjustable house in the third house in America's chart and observing what's going on, taking it in, being kind of secretive, not sharing too much, to now being in the 10th house where it wants social power. It has that internal need to make stuff happen in a show of social power. The moon drives our inner dialogue. This moon in the United States of America's chart is having an emotional response that others can see. Not so in America's chart. How different those two are. And this would also mean, with the moon in that very public house, that its emotions are on display for others to see. Very different than America's chart, where Saturn is up there. Saturn is not a planet that wants to display its emotions. Saturn, if anything, is the block to emotion because it wants to be seen as strong, as having integrity, as being unmoved. That's an interesting dynamic in our two charts. The next thing that changed that I think is most interesting is the location of Mars and Jupiter. They have gone from the 7th house in America's chart of being on stage to now being below the stage, in the back room, in the production area. And they're working in a 5th house area, that energy of structuring. Now, it's a fire house, so what is it structuring? It's ideologies. And this is Jupiter and Mars together. So Jupiter is your big dreams, Mars is your get it done. There's a lot happening underneath America's horizon insofar as structuring our ideologies and how we're going to hold on to them. And with Mars, how we're going to enforce them, because Mars is your energy structure. And both of these are in fire houses. Fire wants to spread like air, which is where the other planets are located, in a cardinal air house. So you kind of get that dynamic of the United States of America really wanting to hone in on its ideologies and spread them so other people believe them, because it has that moon in the 10th house where it wants social power, and it also has that powerhouse team of Pluto and Saturn in the 1st house, which is guarding our personal power. So no one else's beliefs are going to come in and threaten us. Yes, it's a difficult union. Let's take a look at just the United States of America and kind of sum all of this up. We're going to use the same approach as we did for America, and that we're going to start with the moon, because the moon is trying to get to the sun, and it's going to use all those other planets to help it get there, while at the same time being subtly aware of the North Node, which is to lead with the heart. That is in the United States of America's chart, to learn to lead with the heart, and to let go of those South Node tendencies in Cancer. So let's take a look. The United States of America, its moon's inner motivation is to create and control events to secure social power. What it's trying to do is get up to that sun, which is in the same part of the chart that America's sun is in. It's inspiring to be a beacon for the struggles of how we lead with diplomatic power, the problems of having diplomatic power, the opportunities of having diplomatic power, the ins and outs of having strategic relationships and how you do it well, because that's just America's and the United States of America's chart, is we really want to be seen as that diplomatic power. But how the United States of America is going to go about it is different than how America is going to go about it, and this leads to some of our struggles. The United States of America gets to this being a beacon through its Mercury by seeing the world through the eyes of learning the levers of influence. We value and appreciate the art of intellectual battle. We manifest our sun by structuring our ideologies, versus in America's chart, it was by acting on our power of our relationships with others. In the United States of America's chart, we're using our own ideologies, not using, if you remember back to America's chart, that South Node, the corporation or the cult, and we were led by others' ideologies of cult. And this time we seem to have valves there to help us work better at that. Now, how do we learn to work better at that? By failing at that. That's how we do better. Let's get back to Jupiter. Jupiter, we expand our world and grow confidence in ourselves by building on our endless ideas and following our passions and our ideologies. Our obstacles come in the form of personal power being threatened or misuse of personal power. It teaches us integrity. And then we get universal help from Uranus. Same as in America's chart, it's awakening us to excuses made for the status quo. Neptune is this time in a different location in the USA chart. We're looking at unseen forces that test our emotional reliance on others. Are we sensing others' motives correctly? That is going to be a question. Remember, in America's chart, our North Node was there. We're trying to integrate all of our activities under this idea of sensing what others are feeling, doing, looking behind that curtain, because it's foggy. We're not quite sure. Well, now we have Neptune there behind the curtain, asking us, pulling it back, is it real or is it Memorex? Is it live or is it Memorex? That kind of a question. So that test of is it real or is it not is very important in both charts. One in a nodal expression, that's America, and one in the United States of America's chart, and that is Neptune is a divine force. It's not a planet that is in your daily consciousness. It comes in to awaken you in some way, shape, or form, either by flooding you with stimuli or showing you that you got it all wrong. You need to go back and sense things differently, because Neptune is a planet that really asks us to sense, not to rely on the 5 senses that we have, that we're used to, that we're taught in school and stuff. So we have to integrate all these planets. And just like in America's chart that we looked at earlier, we have these difficult conversations that we have to integrate between the planets because they're in different modes and they're in different elements. We have the same thing for the United States of America. When you meet someone, one of the first predictors of are you going to get along is in the modes and the elements. what is the mode, the energy style that your planets are using? It's going to be irritating to a fixed person if you're all cardinal. It's going to be irritating to a fixed person if you're all mutable. It's going to be irritating to a cardinal person if you're mutable and you can't make up your mind. Same thing goes for the elements. If you are more private, earth, water, receptive, you might be irritating to someone who is out there with fire and air, just wanting to spread, wanting to talk, wanting to get going on things, right? So now we're going to look at America's chart and the United States of America's chart in a synergy chart. It's just one way of looking at how people get along with each other. So here we can see there's America's chart on the left, then the USA's chart. We put them together. America is the inner wheel and the USA is the outer wheel. And what you can notice just from the top up of this is that the USA's chart has changed in how it relates to America's chart. There are 4 key tension points produced by this synergy. Let's look at those. The first conversation we're going to look at is between the USA's Sun and America's Mars. It's the "you're not the boss of me" aspect or synergy between our two charts. So here we can see the USA feels that America is foolhardy, and so it controls America's resources. America, on the other hand, feels the USA is domineering and attempts to change the USA, but that just leads the USA to control them more. So there's this power struggle between the USA and America. But together, because we are better together, they realize that they can count on each other kind of as checkpoints to say, yeah, you're going too far here, oh, you're going too far there. Now, they may argue and bicker all the way along the line to get to that point, but still, they will have each other's back. The USA's Sun feels that America has this superiority complex and it makes it unwilling to consider other options. But America is just so irritated with the United States of America's pensive nature. But the USA's pensive nature teaches America to see the bigger picture. The USA absolutely loves America's energy to fulfill the USA's vision. America loves the USA's enthusiasm, its inspiration, and its tolerance for risk. Together, America and the United States of America are like an Oprah and Tony Robbins roadshow, cheering each other on, both full of inspirational information. The USA is drawn to America's visionary nature, but irritated by their lack of structure. America is drawn to the USA's strategic nature, but frustrated when the USA presses for clarity or exacting details. But together, they learn the stability of commitment. But at times, it's like surfing on rocky water. And finally, let's take a look at the synergy charts of a few other more prominent people that we'll all know on America's chart. And let's take a look at how they in turn affect the United States of America's chart. Shirley Chisolm was the first Black woman elected to Congress in 1968. In the chart on the left, we can see that America's Sun is on Shirley Chisholm's 5th house, Pluto. Pluto in her 5th house is there, reflecting a fear of expressing her dreams and her aspirations, a fear of taking risks of the heart, a fear of expressing her ideologies. But in the chart on the right, Shirley's Sun is on the USA's 10th house moon, our inner motives. She brings the USA's inner motives to light, things they may be afraid to admit or share, and she puts them on stage. Next, we're going to look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In this chart on the left, we can see that America's Neptune is on Ruth's Jupiter. So Jupiter by nature wants lots of options. It wants to try out different things to find out what fits. It wants to fling open doors. But there's Neptune. Neptune is that thick layer of film that we can't see through. We have to sense our way through it, and not usually with our 5 senses. So here's Ruth wanting to get out into the world to really explore. And there's Neptune saying, no, Ruth, there are hidden rules. There are hidden games here about what you can do and what you can explore. Now, if you go to the chart on the right, Ruth's Saturn is conjunct the USA's first house Pluto. It's fear of losing its personal power and of being power hungry. Ruth chips away at the USA's abuse of power. It's fear of losing control and of the USA bullying or stonewalling to express its powers. And finally, we're going to take a look at Alexandria, Ocasio, Cortez. We can see she has this very powerful Sun Mars connection up in her 10th house. She is here to light some fires. She is here to speak for the social power of not just herself, but of everyone, because it's a social position. Now, here comes America's Saturn right on top of that power. So what does it do? Saturn is just creating obstacles. Nope, can't do it this way. Nope, can't do it that way. It's making her Sun-Mars connection work really, really hard. That connection on the left is testing her will to achieve her dream and how powerful she is. And she will discover how powerful she is, because if we look at the chart on the right, we see her effect on the United States of America. We see AOC's Venus right on top of the United States of America's moon. It's a secretive moon seeking power. Venus opens a door, it relates, it softens. It wants to understand most times what the other is thinking so it can achieve its own desires. But on top of the United States of America's moon, she's exposing things. She might be a little bit of a threat to some. To others, she is going to be the mouthpiece to what we feel. The other aspect, because I just had to do two on AOC, is the position of her Sun and Mars on America's Neptune. That right there says that she can sense our dream and she can help us manifest it. She can root out the distractions. She gets what the United States of America is trying to envision, what they're trying to see. And she has the energetic force, Mars and the Sun together, to light a path, to show the way. Those are just two aspects that we can talk about. There are more. Where we sit in time in 2025 is a difficult period for many of us. By understanding these two charts, it can help us find answers, because the story is unfolding in the sky. Understanding how to read the story through astrology helps empower us and what role we can play. America just went through its Pluto return from 2008 to roughly 2024. And that Pluto return, which no human will ever have, because we don't live to be 248 years old, it was focused on understanding, are you leading with the heart or are you leading with the wallet? It was a cardinal initiative. It was starting things up. It was starting us to question our leadership structures and how they are formed. It's looking at the integrity of them. It was asking the question, are you leading with the heart? Are you leading with the wallet? Well, the United States of America has a different Pluto, and it's in Aquarius, as well as its ascendant. So Pluto has just entered Aquarius. Aquarius is a fixed entity. It's a fixed sign. It is asking, is it a corporation or is it a cult? It is fixed air. You need to make windows in the box so it can see out. So the United States of America is going to be experiencing its Pluto return in 2032 and 2033. But prior to that, we're going to be getting Pluto on our ascendant. And if you remember from the last video, the last time Pluto was on the ascendant of America was on 9/11. But when Pluto in a fixed sign is coming to the ascendant, well, it's breaking up fixed structures. So we're going to be making some window openings, is another way of looking at that. So astrology can really help us understand how two charts work together. We're not just dealing with America's chart. We're not just dealing with the constitutional chart. We are dealing with two entities who chose to come together colonies who decided we are better together than alone. We are dealing with two charts, and it's a complex relationship. But again, the story is in the sky. We can understand the triggers. We can understand what we are being asked to do. And then in turn, just like Shirley Chisolm and AOC and RBG, we all have something that we can give to these charts. It doesn't have to be huge or on a stage. These are little things that we do because we all know that 90% is more powerful than the 10%, right? We are a force, and we can use our gifts to help America and the United States of America on this very challenging journey. Thank you for joining me here today. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'm going to be doing more videos on this topic about politics and understanding America and the United States of America. That's kind of my gist in this. And I will be looking at some politicians as well, but my interest, my hope, is to inspire you to learn astrology as well, to understand the story unfolding in the sky. It is simple, and just by using the modes, which are the energy, and the elements, which is the motivation, and the one word for the planet, you can get the gist of how the language works. Still, I'm going to go on and teach about the planets and the aspects and the houses and the signs in greater detail. And I look forward to having you there with me. So like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, or don't do any of it. It's A-okay, because this is a spiritual lesson for me doing this kind of stuff, and I'm all in. So see you soon. Thanks. Bye.